going to record just because it's a little nostalgic and it sort of reminds us of what we have to be grateful for, in that we don't have to do this every week anymore. Although, of course, there are varying degrees of risk and concern about all kinds of illness, but really, why we're doing this week, why we're online exclusively this week, is because this is a holiday weekend. It enables us to give a little time off to some of our staff, our custodians in particular, and also, frankly, we don't need to put the heat on for 2 or 3 people. And to be economically frugal is a good idea too, at a time where we have to be careful of expenses, not just for the temple, but for all of us. But I think it also gives us a chance to come together. Now, we don't know how many will show up or who will be here today or tomorrow morning, but there may be people from far away who, aren't able to be with us on a weekly basis, who have felt a little bit sort of left out as we've come back in person, even though we have live stream and Zoom options. So the idea of being able to sort of all be on the same playing field, all in the same room, so to speak, and to remember and to be grateful, to remember how things were, and to be grateful to be alive and to be all together again. So anyway, that's my little Thanksgiving pre-service sermonette. And we are delighted to have Leo with us this evening, this Shabbat. And I'll be sharing the screen like the good old days. And I'll put in the chat the link if you want to go at your own pace and have the service with you. So without further ado, let's begin. Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh, Avarachaman, Mishochata, Eretzonach, Yarutavach, Kimo Ayah, Ishtachave, El Muhadara, Yerablo, Yedidutach, Min Hofetzuv, Vechol Ta'am, Adonai Ziv Haolam, Nafshi Cholat Avatach, Ana Rafana Be'arot Noam Ziva, Az Titchazek V'titrafe V'haitalach Shivchat Olam V'tikyemu Rachamecha V'chusna Al Beinovach Kizakama Nichsof Nichsaf Lirot Ptiferet Uzach Ana Eli Machmad Libi Kushana Ve'al Titalam Igalena Ufros Chaviv Alai Etzukat Shelomach Ta'aretz Mikvodach Nagila V'nismecha Wa'erahu Kiva Moed V'chaneni Ki Me'olam Yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai, yadadai-dai-dai,
Okay, so let's now continue with Lechu Niranina.
And please, even though you're muted, please do sing along wherever you can. Let's get that feeling going. It's great. You can sing as loud as you want to, and nobody's going to hear any missed notes. Just go for it. Lechu niranena l'Adonai, nari al tzur yishenu. Lechu niranena l'Adonai, nari al tzur yishenu. Nekad mavanav b'toda b'zmirot, nari alo. Nekad mavanav b'toda b'zmirot, nari alo. Arbaim shana kut b'tor v'yomaram tuev l'pavhem v'hem lo yadu derechai asher nishbati v'api imi va'u no menuchati.
We'll go to the next psalm, Shiru Ladonai. And by the way, for anyone who's wondering, this is a Thanksgiving yarmulke that's by the background behind me.
Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai baruch shemo, basru meyom leyom yeshuato, sapru bagoyim kevodo bechol ha'amim niflotav, ki gadol Adonai umulal meod norahu. Al kol Elohim ma'idai, ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim, ba'adonai shamayim asa, od v'hada lefanav, oz v'tiferet v'mikdasho, havu l'Adonai mishmechot amim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, sehu mincha, Uvo lechatzrotav vayda yishachavu l'Adonai behadras kodesh chilu mifanav kol haaretz imru bagoyim Adonai malach avtikon te'el ba'al timot yadinamim b'meisharim yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz yiram hayam umelo yalos sadai V'chol asher bo ayrai, az yiranenu kol atzeya lifnei Adonai kiva lishpot haaretz, yishpot hevel betzedek, ve'amim be'emunato yadai, 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 yadai,
Okay, so let's continue now. We're on page 22 for those who have a Sidur at home. Ana Bekoach, and that will lead us into Lecha Dodi.
Ana bekoach, bekoach, gedulat yamincha, yamincha, tatir tzerura kaberinat zagvenu darenu nora. Anna bekoach gedulat yamincha, tatir tzerura, kabel rinat amecha, sagvenu darenu nora. Yadadai, dadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai, dadai. Yadadai, dadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai, dadai, yadadai, dadai.
And Lecha Dodi on page 23.
Should we do the whole thing?
Sure.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור ודיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המנוחת, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך ההפכה, רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התנערי מעפר קומי, לבשי בגדי תפארתך עמי, על יד בני שי בסלח מי, קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי. בך יחסו אני עמי ונבנתה עיר, אל תילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשיסוך שוסייך ורחקו כל מבלייך, יסיס עלייך אלוהיך, כי ימסוס חתנה כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי ואת אדוני תעריצי על יד איש, והן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
And let's continue now with the Psalm of Thanksgiving, appropriately, the Shabbat Psalm, on page 27.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת. מזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמך העליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז Tzvaot Eloheinu yafrichu Odyenu Niseva Deshenim Merananim Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri Tzuri V'lo Avlatapo.
That was wonderful. So as we head and transition into the Kabalat, from Kabalat Shabbat to the Mariv service, I'm going to change my virtual background to Plymouth Plantation. Hey, you know, you gotta move things around a little bit when you have a chance here. All right, so let's go to the Baruch Hu as we rise, page 39b.
Et Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Leolam Vaed
And we are seated.
El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Milchalenu Leolam Vaed Baruch Atah Adonai
Shema.
Yivarayim.
Amen. Oops. Let's continue with Ahavat Olam on page 40, followed by the Shema.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochenu u'v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני.
Shema.
Israel.
Amen.
Shema Israel. Adonai Eloheinu. Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופתך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידך והיו טוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
And we continue on the next page with the rest of the Shema.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Let's continue now with Michamocha on page 44.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לחנו שירה ושמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדבר קודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע מפני משה ומרים זה אלינו ויאמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני
Shemo.
ישראל.
And the prayer for peace. Hashkivenu.
השכיבנו שלום.
Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us. You, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem.
ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני
Shemo.
סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים
V'shamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם
Ati liolam.
אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני
Asa Adonai.
את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש
Shabbat vayinafash.
שבת ויהי נפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Olam. Let's rise for the Chatzi Kaddish, followed by the silent Amida. There are no special prayers for Thanksgiving weekend, and Rosh Chodesh just ended at sunset, so we just have a good old Shabbat.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה
Amen.
עלמא דברך ירתה וימליך מלכותה בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשא ברך אלא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה Tu shvechata v'nechemata, Damiran mi'alma, V'yimeru.
Amen. Now the Amida, silently. Leo's going to lead us in Shalom Rav, as you can see it on the page here, on page 51. And I put into the chat the link for the entire service so that if you want to go at your own pace and do some of the Amida or other prayers, perhaps, that we went through, you can click on that and be able to follow it on your own. But if you do that, in the prayer book, we're now on page 51.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
So, welcome to Plymouth once again. And, it's been a pretty busy time considering the holidays. Most of our holidays have passed or are still to come. Hanukkah is a month away almost. But we've had a lot of, unfortunately, sadness in the congregation, illness and deaths over the past few weeks. And it's somewhat ironically, a couple of the illnesses, more severe illnesses, in fact, have come to congregants that I've come to know over the years as being the most, or among the most positive thinking, optimistic people I've ever met. In fact, both of them recently, when I asked them how they were doing, or in this one case, how a loved one was doing, the answer was fantastic, which is the last thing you expect to hear from someone when you're dealing with severe illness, either for yourself or your family. It's one thing to say, thank God, things could be worse, whatever. I mean, that's sort of a typical Jewish approach, but fantastic is not what you expect here. In both cases, that's what I heard. course, neither situation is in fact fantastic, not now and not then. Um, but being very positive in your outlook to life, I think, is a great way to lengthen life, for one thing, but to also increase the quality of life. And that is, in my mind, a highlight of this weekend of Thanksgiving that we should never forget. There are a lot of things, I could have talked about tonight, including gun violence, for instance. I mean, hitting the country with two major incidents over the past week, but and probably more. But we'll talk a little about that tomorrow, actually. But for tonight, I want to keep it positive and talk about a guy, a rabbi from the Talmud named Nachum Ish Gamzu. Nachum, typical Jewish name. Ish, man. Gamzu is a shortened form of Gamzu Latova, because that's what he would say all the time. So it became his nickname. Gamzu Latova means this is for the good. This too is for the good. Or in sort of modern parlance, fantastic. Nachum means comforted. Even his first name has significance in this way. He was actually a teacher of Rabbi Akiva from fame of Mishnah and Talmud, and Akiva took his lessons to heart. So here's a story that is pretty well known in the Talmud. Rabbi Akiva went to a town where, as you know, often happens in these parables of ancient inns, there were no rooms to be had. So unfazed, he camped out in the woods with his donkey, his rooster, and a candle. Whereupon, as he was spending the night, a fox ate the rooster, a lion ate his donkey, and the wind blew out the candle. And Akiva, rather than bemoaning his fate, figured it was God's will. So the next day dawned. Turns out the entire town had been sacked during the night. Had Akiva's rooster crowed, he thought? Had the donkey brayed? Or the candle, had it shone brightly? The sackers, the crooks, would have noticed him too. And, probably he wouldn't have fared too well. So you get the point, that there's a silver lining even to the clouds that he suffered, that Akiva suffered that night. And you never know what the end result of even misfortune is going to be. So, I bet each of us has a Gamzu Latova story, maybe on a different scale, maybe not quite on the Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud scale, but each of us has a way, perhaps, of turning lemons not into lemonade, that was my Rosh Hashanah sermon, but into lemon champagne, even better than lemonade. One writer looked for Gamzu Latova stories, and here's a few that he found. Laid off twice in 8 months, Sarah decided to become her own boss, a professional organizer, and now she's the author of Organizing for Dummies. Barry left his job after a humiliating pay dispute, but was hired back as a consultant for more money. Second-year med student Daniel was taking the test he needed to pass to be promoted. He'd never failed a test before. He failed that one. Depressed and terrified, he studied all summer. Not only did he ace the do-over, but he feels that he's a more attentive doctor to this day. And these are just the job stories. There are stories about people who suffered illnesses, and yet through those illnesses, they learned lessons, life lessons, that helped them to become better people and in the long run. Gamzu Latova. Even that was for the best. Now, I'm not saying that if you have, pancreatic cancer, God forbid, that's not good. There's very little Gamzu Latova you can get out of that. But, no one's going to say, wow, it's wonderful, I have cancer, now my family's going to collect my life insurance. It doesn't work like that. In the real world, what actually helps, and a more Jewish approach, is to say, this is terrible. I'm going to do what I need to do to get the treatments I need to get. In other words, it's human. Be positive. Treat bad news as bad news. If you believe you're actually supposed to treat it as good news in disguise, you can end up feeling worse. So, like if there's a raccoon in the chimney or something, it's not part of some wonderful divine plan. You're not going to change careers suddenly and become a successful exterminator, or maybe write Ode to a Raccoon and become America's poet laureate. So it's insulting in a way to say that all bad things are really for the best. I'm not advocating a Panglossian, a Pangloss type attitude from Candide, but it seems clear that taking action sometimes can change life for the better. You'll get tired of making lemonade before the universe gets tired of giving you lemons. But maybe the whole plan is for you and me and each of us to get the pitcher out and to stir things up. So maybe on this Thanksgiving weekend, we can share some Gamzu Latova stories. Memorize the phrase Gamzu Latova. This too has some good in it. And there's a prayer that we say, that we just said as part of the Amida. In fact, we say all the time. The Modim prayer means the gratitude prayer. In fact, the first thing that Jews say in the morning is Modeh Ani, a prayer thanking God, expressing a deep gratitude just for the gift of waking up, for being alive. When Gamzu Latova has firmly been imprinted on our minds, we'll find that phrase at the ready whenever something occurs that seems to run counter to our expectations or wishes. You won't have to remember to bring that phrase to mind. From deep within, the reminder that this too is for the good will pop up, and the situation you will face will look suddenly very different. And you'll look around at your misfortunes and say, despite it all, fantastic. So I hope you're having a fantastic weekend, Gamzu Latova, even if there are things that haven't gone quite according to plan. So, Leo, do you happen to have a cup of wine nearby? Oh, my goodness. So let's go for that. Hold on. Why don't you start? I'll get the Kiddush on the screen. You have it, though, in front of you, right?
Now I do.
There you go. Okay. So we can watch you. Go ahead. Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu matzotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikrai kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodecha, v'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu, baruch atah Adonai,
Shema.
mikadesh hashabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. And we all rise or remain standing if we can for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula leotzeh reshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo samchalkinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Said okay, Nikavelecha. And we are seated.
Hakatu b'toratecha Adonai himloch leolam va'ed v'nehemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz v'yom hahu Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Our congregation mourns this week the passing of Evelyn Kugelman, the mother of Julie Harris, Eleanor Agatstein, the mother of Rich Agatstein, and Marty Steinmetz, who was a longtime member of our congregation. We also recall in loving memory this coming week the yard sites of Ruth Abrams, Joan Aronowitz, Warner Brodeck, Stella Brody, Frida Brown, Nathan Cohen, Faye Colton, Ruth Drockman, Stanley Epstein, Arthur Firestone, Beverly Frankel, Lillian Fruithandler, Dorothy Gould, Betty Greenberg, Mildred Grossman, Bernard Hellman, Harold Kival, Dora Kleiman, Leonard Klein, Thelma Estrin List, Joseph Nemzer Maxner, Celia Oberhan, Sheldon Perlman, Marsha Pomerantz, Burton Robbins, Stanton Rosenberg, James Shedlin, Eva Tuckle, and Adolph Weinstein. Those who mourn and those who are observing yard sites can join now and unmute if you'd like for the mourners Kaddish. Yit Gadal, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Yamad, Yibrach, Yibutei, Nishmat, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayei, V'chorei, V'chorei, V'agalah, V'chman, Karim, V'gru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Rabbah, V'yolam Lomei, Almaya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yishbahar, V'yishomam, V'yitnaseh, Yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei Dekutcha, Brichu, Yela, Minkol Berchata, V'yirata, V'yishbachata, V'nechamata, V'niran Di'alma, V'yimru, Amen. Yehei Shlama, Rabbah, Mishmaya, V'chayim, Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'romam, Huya Seh Shalom, Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael, Kol Yisrael Tiseh,
Amen.
Amen. So anyway, it's again good to see everyone. I think we need to remute. There's a little bit of an echo. Anyway, so Leo, thank you so much for leading again our service. It's always wonderful to hear you, to have you with us, whether in person or online or both. And it was really nice. I know you're going to be reading Torah tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Tomorrow morning, the service is again just on Zoom, and the links have been provided in our emails, our temple emails. And on Sunday morning, it will just be on Zoom as well. That's at 9 a.m. There will be some Shiva minions over the course of the next few days, so pay attention to those emails that have gone out, just to let you know when and where and for whom. Any other announcements? So let's conclude with Yigdal.
Oh, I want to give everyone a shout out for singing along at home. I can see you singing, and it's really awesome. I feel like we're singing together. So we got one more go on it for Yigdal.
And that Kaddish was actually kind of nice to hear all the voices sort of coming in from different places. So anyway, Yigdal.
יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא ויהנה אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשיס לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורה גדולתו מלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא ומביט את תמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לעמואל, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו, לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר וקדמתו, גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרשעתו, ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, לפדות נחכה קץ ישועתו, מתים יחיה אל ברוך חסדו, ברוך עד שם תהילתו, מתים יחיה אל ברוך חסדו, ברוך עד שם תהילתו.
And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Happy
shalom.
Kislev.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Bye.
Rabbi,
Shalom, everybody.